The clink of a cheap metal spoon against a rented punch bowl stopped every conversation in the hotel banquet room, and Dale Pressman stepped up to the microphone with the kind of smile that used to make Bonnie Halloway believe she was safe. She stood near the back wall in a dress she had hemmed herself with thread borrowed from the motel desk drawer, her hands rough from 10 years of wiping down countertops and balancing the books at his failing tire shop. Dale had asked her to come tonight to his Chamber of Commerce Awards dinner in Cedar Falls, Iowa, saying it would be the night they celebrated their new loan approval. She actually thought he meant they had made it together. Before we continue, remember that this is still a small channel and I could really use your support. Please like the video and subscribe. It's free and it helps more than you know. Dale tapped the mic, and the room of local developers and bank officers went quiet. He thanked the committee, then turned his eyes straight to Bonnie. He said, "Folks, I want to toast the person who showed me exactly what dead weight looks like. Bonnie, my wife, taught me that some people are built for the bleachers. She has no head for real business, no spine for hard rooms, and if I'm honest, looking at her tonight just confirms it. You do not have the stomach for the real world, Bonnie. Stay in the kitchen where you belong." Laughter rattled from the front tables. A woman in a silk blazer walked up the side stairs and slid her arm through Dale's. That was Marcy Toll, the loan officer who had just approved his expansion using Bonnie's saved receipts as the collateral. Dale kissed Marcy's cheek and introduced her as the real brain behind the new Pressman Auto Group. Bonnie's hair clip, a small turquoise barrette her late grandmother gave her, slipped from her hair and hit the floor. Dale glanced at it and kicked it toward the busboy station. He said, "Get out of here, Bonnie. You are ruining the mood." She ran through the parking lot in the rain, one sandal breaking at the ankle, and did not stop until she reached the rented room above the laundromat where she had hidden $47 in a coffee can. The next morning, the shop locks were changed. Her clothes were in black trash bags on the curb. Dale's mother had filed the trailer and accounts solely under their names the year before, and Bonnie had no claim. She stayed in that damp room week after week, jumping at the sound of the hallway dryer. The echo of Dale's voice told her she was nothing. She practiced breathing just to buy bread at the corner store, rehearsing in the cracked mirror so no one would laugh at her shaking hands. The last of the coffee can money bought a bus ride to Des Moines, where she found night work mopping the halls of the Meridian Trust Tower, a glass building downtown where Iowa's agricultural funds were managed. The crew chief told her the rules. No main elevator, no eye contact with portfolio managers. Be invisible. For a while, the invisibility kept her panic quiet. One freezing Tuesday at 3 in the morning, she pushed her cart into the corner office of the top floor. That was the workspace of Russell Bracken, the founder who built Meridian from a single farm loan and crushed 2 rivals who cheated him. People said he fired vice presidents for sloppy forecasts. Bonnie wiped his desk and saw a printed risk model left open. She had balanced a tire shop ledger on nothing but instinct, and the numbers here were wrong. The corn futures line had taxed the gross instead of the net, and the error would bleed millions. She picked up a red pen from his tray and wrote the correction in the margin. Then she panicked. She tried to smear it, but the ink held. She heard his steps and fled with her mop. Russell had been in the adjoining kitchenette watching through the half-open blind. The next day, the chief financial officer left the office pale and sweating. Russell stood at his door and pointed at Bonnie in the hall. He said, "You with the mop. Come here." She walked in, head down, gripping the handle. He held up the paper. He said, "Who taught you discounted liquidity math?" Bonnie swallowed. She said, 10 years of keeping a shop afloat on pennies, mister. There was a mistake in your model." Russell looked at her calloused fingers, then at the turquoise barrette. He said, "Starting tomorrow, you are my junior data associate. Buy real clothes, the pay covers it." Bonnie moved to a desk by his door. The other managers resented her. Cora Vance, the operations director with razor heels and a smile like a trap, started the whisper that Bonnie was trading favors for the job. In the break room, voices dropped when she passed. Bonnie touched the barrette each time the fear rose, and the numbers on her screen never laughed at her. Russell began asking her opinion in meetings with outside brokers. Her cost cuts held. Slowly, he relied on her presence, not just her mind. Cora would not accept a former mop clerk at the table. A merger with a Nebraska tech logistics firm was near signing, documents locked in Russell's secure server. On the morning of the deal, the data leaked to their biggest competitor. Security traced the send to Bonnie's terminal. Cora sat at the board table with a manila folder and fake pity. She said, "We found the offshore transfers in your drawer, Bonnie, under your maiden name." Bonnie felt the floor open. She said, "I did not do this. I have no accounts offshore." The security head said, "The logs say otherwise." Russell raised a hand and silence fell. He said, "She lacks the skill to bypass level 7 security, and she is no thief." The board chairman, old Hirsch, banged the table. He said, "The council votes her out. Guards, remove her." They grabbed her arms and walked her through the lobby, past staring clerks into the snow. The barrette fell from her hair as they pushed her out. She stood under a bus shelter, soaked, hearing Dale's voice again. "You have no stomach for the real world." A black sedan cut the snow with its headlights. Russell stepped out without a coat. He said, "Why did you run?" Bonnie hugged her cardboard box. She said, "They won, Russell. I am just the mop lady. That is all they see." Russell took her face in his hands. He said, 10 years ago, my brother forged my name and threw me out of our first firm. I slept on a borrowed office floor eating gas station tacos, sure no one would ever trust me. I know the dark, Bonnie. Fear is just the signal you are about to do something big. You are not leaving. We dig. In his fortified house outside town, Russell's off-book investigators pulled the server copy he had taken. Bonnie knew Cora's habit of underestimating building staff. The team found the leak came from the lobby cafe router, not her terminal. The device signature matched Cora's company phone. The ghost accounts Cora claimed Bonnie used led to the competitor's spy unit. Cora was the leak. 3 days later, the board met to crown Cora interim chief. The double doors flew open. Russell entered, and behind him walked Bonnie in a fitted navy suit, barrette firm in her hair. She dropped the evidence folder on the table. She said, "The real records show Cora routed the data and took the competitor's money." The board flipped the pages. Cora stood and said, "This is forged." She mopped floors. The chairman said, "We believe the facts." State police entered and cuffed Cora. Bonnie felt the old fear die. 2 years on, Bonnie was managing partner of Meridian's new rural growth division, and Russell at her side. One Friday, the assistant said a walk-in applicant for a regional post came early begging survival. Bonnie signed a form and said, "Send him in." Ricardo stepped in wearing a too-large suit, hair thin and grey. It was Dale. His shop had collapsed when Marcy took the loan and left him. He was evicted and begging. He whispered, "Bonnie, it is you. I did not know the firm was yours. I am sorry, please give me the job. I have nowhere to go." Bonnie watched him. No pain remained, only a cold scar. She said, "Dale, this post needs integrity you never had." He wept and begged. She pressed the intercom and said, "Walk him out, the post is filled." Dale shuffled away. Russell came from the side door with 2 coffees. He asked, "Settled?" Bonnie looked at the city below, touched the barrette, then dropped it in the waste bin. She said, "Totally settled. We have an empire to build. Where are the branch reports?" The storm was over, and Bonnie commanded the winds. The branch reports landed on her desk by noon, and Bonnie spent the afternoon rebuilding the rural growth model with a precision that made the junior analysts quiet. Russell watched from the glass wall of his office, then joined her with a printout of the Nebraska logistics audit. He said, Cora's trial starts Monday, and the prosecutor wants you as the lead civilian witness. Bonnie nodded, already drafting the timeline of the leak in plain language a jury could follow. She had learned that the real world was not the hard room Dale described, but a set of systems anyone could master once they stopped apologizing for existing. That weekend, she drove to Cedar Falls and stood outside the shuttered Pressman Auto Group. The windows were tagged with foreclosure notices, and a rusted tow truck sat on the lot where she had once balanced the books on a folding table. Marcy Toll's name was gone from the sign. She had been indicted for bank fraud after the loan papers Bonnie saved exposed the collateral scam. Bonnie left a single copy of Meridian's annual report on the cracked pavement, then drove back without looking in the rear view. On Monday, the courtroom was packed. Cora entered in restraints, her razor heels replaced by county slippers. Bonnie walked to the stand in the navy suit, barrette absent, and answered every question without flinching. She traced the router signature, the ghost accounts, and the competitor's payment to Cora's niece. The jury returned a guilty verdict in under 2 hours. Outside, reporters asked how a former janitor became managing partner. Bonnie said, "I was never a janitor. I was invisible because someone told me to be. That ends now." Russell expanded her division into 3 states by spring. She hired 10 people from rural Iowa who had been told they had no spine for finance and trained them on the same ledger instinct that saved Meridian. One hire was a single mother from Boone who had cleaned bank halls for 6 years. Bonnie gave her the desk by the door. The culture at Meridian shifted from fear to proof, and Hirsch retired early when the board voted to strip the old guard of veto power. Dale resurfaced in August with a letter begging for a janitor role at the Des Moines Tower. Bonnie forwarded it to HR with a note, "Deny and flag his name." She did not hate him. She simply had no use for the man who kicked her grandmother's barrette toward the busboy. Russell found her on the rooftop that evening, watching the city lights. He said, "You dropped the barrette for good." Bonnie smiled. She said, "It served its purpose. Now I wear the suit." They signed the contract for the Omaha branch the next morning, and Bonnie initialed the page where Cora's name used to be on the org chart. By the 3rd year, the Rural Growth Division outperformed every urban portfolio at Meridian. Bonnie spoke at the Iowa State Fair on financial dignity, and a girl from the bleachers asked if she needed a degree to matter. Bonnie said, "You need proof and nerve. That's the whole degree." Russell stood at the back, coffee in hand, and when she stepped down, they walked to the truck with the kind of quiet that needs no apology. The prophecy Dale voiced in the banquet room was dead, replaced by a ledger only she could balance, and the winds she commanded were just beginning to spread. That evening, after the Iowa State Fair, Bonnie and Russell drove south on I-35 toward Des Moines. The truck's cab smelled of old coffee and dry corn dust. Bonnie pulled the napkin from her pocket, the one with the financial literacy sketch, and crossed out 2 lines with a pen. Russell glanced over. "Still tweaking?" "The eligibility window is too narrow. I want it open to any rural student who finishes the first module, not just top scorers. Nerve and proof, remember?" Russell smiled and turned his eyes back to the road. They stopped at a diner in Ankeny, a booth near the back where the waitress called them Hon, and refilled their cups without being asked. Bonnie ordered a grilled cheese. Russell ate a patty melt. Over the table, Bonnie finalized the program budget on a paper placemat, dividing the initial seed money between instructor salaries and transportation scholarships. Russell initialed the bottom without reading the details. "I trust your math," he said. "Always have." The next morning, Bonnie filed the proposal with the Meridian Foundation. Approval came within a week. By the following fall, the Rural Financial Literacy Initiative enrolled 300 students across Iowa, Nebraska, and Kansas. Bonnie personally selected 5 of them for a pilot mentorship track. Meeting each in their home county library after hours, she taught them how to evaluate a loan application, how to read a balance sheet, how to distinguish between risk and ruin. All 5 completed the track. 4 accepted full-time positions at Meridian after graduation. The 5th opened a hardware store in Algona, using a small business loan she secured with a plan Bonnie helped draft. 1 year after the state fair, Bonnie sat in her corner office on the 21st floor, overlooking the city. The sun pooled across the desk, where the framed risk model hung on the wall behind her. A knock came. Her assistant, a young man from Ottumwa named Trevor, poked his head in. "You have a visitor. No appointment. I can send her away." Bonnie asked who it was. Trevor said, "Paige from Cedar Falls. She brought someone." Bonnie stood. Paige entered, holding the hand of a girl about 12 years old, with the same wide eyes and hesitant posture Paige had worn the year before. Paige said, "This is my little sister, Emily. She heard your speech at the fair. She didn't think she could ever do math fast enough. I told her you said it's not about speed. It's about proof and nerve. Emily wants to know if she can be an analyst one day." Bonnie crouched down to the girl's level. "Can you finish a problem if you take twice the time?" Emily nodded. "Does your answer check out when you're done?" Emily nodded again. Bonnie said, "Then you're already faster than half the industry. Come see me when you're 15. I'll have a desk ready." Emily's face broke into a smile, and Bonnie stood straight, her hands empty of any charm. She did not need a barrette anymore. The suit was enough. The winds she commanded carried new passengers now, and she had no intention of letting them fall.